Adam, talk to me about this test, how big a breakthrough it is, and what kind of demand you're expecting to see for it.
Absolutely. Good morning, Guy and Alex. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. At LabCorp, we continue to make significant progress. We've had a lot of new innovations when it comes to testing for COVID-19. Our latest innovation is the ability to test people with one simple nasal swab, not the old-fashioned nasal swab that you think of that are really long and go deep in your nose. This is a simple nasal swab that you can test all three respiratory diseases, meaning COVID-19, flu, and RSV with one swab. And you have it done in a doctor's office, and it can be then reported back to you in 24 to 48 hours. At the same time, we filed with the FDA to have that available at our Pixel through LabCorp at-home collection test. So you can order it online. It will be sent to your home, FedEx. You take the simple nasal swab, apply it for yourself, and then you send it back to us. And again, the results are typically available on average in 24 to 48 hours.
So what's the biggest hurdle to kind of getting this out there to the masses right now?
So right now, we can do about 200,000 COVID-19 tests per day. The flu season hasn't really hit in the United States at the moment, so there's probably no need for the triple test at the moment. We just wanted to have it out there for whenever the flu season starts.
How much capacity do you have?
Well, we can do, like I said, 200,000 tests per day. Those are the PCR tests. Many of those will be able to be either single tests or testing all three, COVID, flu, and RSV. And based upon the number of orders we get, we'll decide how many we run for each of those. But we continue to build capacity. Right now, with capacity of 200,000 a day, we're only using about half of that. But we're still building capacity because we want to be prepared for a worst-case scenario if the flu season in the United States is very severe.
Do you think you're still going to be able to get $100 in reimbursement for this new test combined?
So we are launching the test without a reimbursement price from CMS, which is the part of the government that gives pricing. It's just like we did with the PCR test and the antigen test. We want to make the test available to the American public as quickly as possible. We won't bill until we have the exact pricing worked out with CMS, but our assumption is that we will be able to get a fair price for the three of them measured together.
How does demand for this business change if we get a vaccine?
Well, first of all, let's hope we get a vaccine and get it as soon as possible. The real question is going to be, how effective is the vaccine? How often are you going to take the vaccine? Is it once a year, or is it once and you're done? And then it's also going to be based on how many people actually are going to go and get the vaccine. Our assumption is that most people will get the vaccine, that there'll still be a need for what we do with PCR testing. But importantly, when you look at LabCorp, PCR testing is not the majority of our business. Most of our business is other diagnostic tests, but also 40% of our revenue is in drug development, developing with our pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies things like COVID vaccines, COVID treatments, but we work across every therapeutic category.
What kind of supply issues are you looking at right now on your day-to-day testing and when you're looking to expand capacity?
Yeah, so right now, we're in very good shape in terms of supply. We always watch and we're always concerned. We're running on 8 different platforms, meaning we have 8 different ways that we can run these tests. So if there's a supply issue on one of the platforms, we still have 7 others that we can run. The biggest issue is getting enough of the machines that actually do the molecular testing. Just to give you a sense, one of those machines is about the size of an ordinary car. And if you run that machine all day for 24 hours, you can do about 3,000 tests on that machine. So you can imagine how complicated those machines are and how many you need in order to run 200,000 tests a day.
Just in terms of what is about to happen, we are going to see the influenza season, the RSV season, and COVID cases are spiking. I've just seen data that suggests that Europe's actually beginning to accelerate faster now than the United States. Can you describe to me that cocktail of events and how difficult it is going to be for doctors and medics to be able to tell the difference between one and t'other?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that if people continue to wear masks, they continue to socially be distant, and they have good hygiene, it should minimize the impact of the flu season. The same things that work for having COVID less spreading will work for the flu not spreading as much. So people have to continue to be diligent with those things. At the same time, when somebody has a symptom, they can either go to their doctor, be tested for all three at once, COVID, flu, and RSV, to see what they have. Or if they have symptoms and they want to stay home, they'll be able to have a test ordered from their home to see which of the three that they have. But it really depends on how much of the flu season, how big it is as we go into the fall. The good news is, as you look at certain parts of the world that were in winter while the United States and Europe were in summer, you actually saw that the flu season was not as bad as it was last year. A part of that could be because people were socially distancing, wearing masks. We have to see if that holds true in this part of the world. But there's reason to be optimistic if people continue to really be diligent.
Do you think that that 20-second test using saliva, how do you view those other kind of tests? I mean, obviously you're going to talk your own company, your own book for the 24-hour test, but is there going to be room in the market for all of these and implementation?
Absolutely. I think there's room for all kinds of tests. There's really three primary tests. There's a PCR test, which is what we do, and that's really looking at the molecular RNA of the virus. Then there's the antigen test, which is point-of-care tests that are quicker. They look for the protein of the virus on the outer surface of the virus. And then there's the antigen test. That tells you if you've had the virus in the past. The PCR test, the first one, continues to be considered the gold standard by most people. However, if you're looking to do surveillance and do mass testing, there is a real use potentially for antigen, particularly in areas where there's a very low prevalence rate of the virus.
A lot of people are trying to figure out how you would reopen the North Atlantic. How would you do it? How does testing fit into that regime? And how fast does it need to be done to be effective?
Yeah, so we have a LabCorp employee service group, and they spend all day, every day, helping employers and schools start to think about how to reopen. The first thing is people have to be diligent. They have to wear masks, social distance, and have good hygiene. Second thing is you want to prevent people from getting in if they're ill. So if you do temperature checks or if you have questionnaires, have you lost sense of smell recently? Do you have a fever, cough? You can try to avoid those people from getting into the workplace. Of course, some will get in, particularly if they're asymptomatic. Once they do, if anybody shows symptoms, send them home, have a PCR test done, track and trace the people around them, test them as well. I think if we do all those things, we can reopen schools as well as businesses, and we've seen some success stories there.